2021 season is already looking a little better, as it has been confirmed that three key players that had opted out of the 2020 season will be returning this fall. Mariah, Janos, and Evan Lazar here. So the Patriots get back linebacker Dont'a Hightower, safety Patrick Chung, and tackle Marcus Cannon, filling in some of those major holes that we saw in the defense this past season. But we're going to go down the list and kind of go over what each of these guys will be bringing to the table, just in case you forgot. So let's start with Dont'a Hightower.
Yeah, so Hightower, obviously we know about his on-field impact, even his off-field impact in terms of being in the meeting rooms and the film rooms, but just a leader, a de facto coach, really, I would say at this point, on and off the field, a leader on the field, a guy that wears the green dot a lot of the time, that gets the troops in order, make sure everybody knows what their assignment is, and often is calling out plays from the opposition, saying, you know, run left, run right, just depending on formations and stuff like that. A very cerebral player and someone that understands the ins and outs of the Patriots defense through and through, and also brings that physicality, versatility, the presence that we know of Boom Tower. You know, Dont'a Hightower, one of the better players, I would say, from this last decade of the Patriots. But I think the biggest thing when you look at with Hightower is that his contract situation, his cap hit right now for the 2021 season is $12.4 million for a 31-year-old linebacker is a lot of money. So I think the Patriots are going to try to renegotiate his contract just a little bit. Now, the easiest way to do it is a contract extension. He is a free agent after the season, so there's no future years to kick that can down the road. So an extension, maybe something like a 2 or 3 year deal that has some new money in it to incentivize Dont'a Hightower to want to accept this contract, and then also gives the Patriots some more cap flexibility in the short term. Something that could work for both sides there. Asking Dont'a Hightower for a pay cut, I think, is laughable. I think he'll just sit there and turn on the tape of the 2020 defense and be like, do you really want to play again without me or not? So I think that a pay cut's probably not going to work out for the Patriots too well. So that contract extension option is probably where things are headed right now with Dont'a Hightower, because I don't expect him to be on the team next year at $12.4 million.
Yeah, definitely a sound investment there. What about Patrick Chung?
So this one's a little bit trickier because the Patriots just signed Patrick Chung to that contract extension before the 2020 season, and then he opted out, so the year just told it deferred to the next season. So the Patriots would actually lose cap space if they were to cut Patrick Chung. So he's going to be on the team next season, and then it does get into a little bit of a tricky situation where you have Kyle Duggar and you still have Adrian Phillips under contract, and what do you kind of do at that hybrid linebacker, strong safety position? They're going to have some bodies there, certainly, but Patrick Chung is a guy that they have always really held in high regard, somebody that plays very hard, is always very well conditioned, and can play, you know, 99.9% of the snaps if he has to. He's had some injuries in the past, but I think for the most part, he's been a very consistent and reliable player, even if his on-ball production when it goes up against tight ends has sometimes waned a little bit in recent years. The team still holds him in very, very high regard. I was a little bit surprised that they gave him that extension given his age and his production. So I think the Patriots and Bill Belichick feel a lot differently about Patrick Chung, the player and the person, than maybe we do on the outside looking in, just evaluating his tape.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about Marcus Cannon?
So Marcus Cannon is not going to be on the New England Patriots under his current contract next season. I can guarantee you that. He is going to account for $9.6 million against the Patriots salary cap, and they don't necessarily have a dire need at right tackle. Michael Onwenu was a perfect seamless transition last year when Cannon opted out. Onwenu stepped in and played extremely well at that spot. Justin Herron was really impressive for people in the building, and he ended up actually going on a little bit of a faster developmental trajectory than they actually initially expected, and was on the field quicker than they thought he would be. So I think they feel really good about both of those guys from last year's draft. Certainly Onwenu, which we obviously knew, and Justin Herron, I think played a lot better than people thought too. So they have two guys there that I think that they feel pretty good about at right tackle if Marcus Cannon were to get released. And if the Patriots were to release Marcus Cannon, they would save $7 million against the cap. So he does have a future year. He has one more year on his contract, so maybe they can convert some of that salary into a signing bonus and kick the can down the road again, which they've done a couple of times already with Marcus Cannon. But a release I don't think is out of the question. I think he makes it to camp just so that they can see what they have at that point. But if he loses out that job to a guy like Onwenu or a rookie or Herron or something like that, then I don't he could be one of those guys that ends up being a cut candidate for sure during training camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Things to keep an eye on. Now, obviously, we go back and forth this offseason with where the Patriots should really be focusing their aggressiveness when acquiring players. With the return of these three, or at least two of the three, does this kind of solidify that the focus should now really be on the offense? Do we need to worry less about the defense now?
It's a good question because I think a lot of people are going to see this Donta Hightower news in particular and say, well, they have Donta Hightower, they have Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings from last year. Do they really need another linebacker in the draft, right? Do they really need to go out and pay another linebacker in free agency? I still think that Bill Belichick views team building often as looking at the next 3 to 5 years and not just this season, right? What's the future outlook of this team? And it would behoove the Patriots, in my mind, to get the next great Pats linebacker in the building before Donta Hightower moves on or retires, because he is such a great teacher and a great mentor for a young linebacker that I would love to take advantage of that if I was the Patriots. So I still think linebacker is going to be up there, especially inside linebacker or off-ball linebacker, maybe not necessarily as much with the edge rushers, because you can move Donta Hightower onto the line of scrimmage in certain situations too and have him stand up over the tackles. So I don't know if edge rusher is necessarily as big of a need as I thought, but inside linebacker, I'd still like to see them add a guy. And certainly if you're sitting there in the first round and Micah Parsons or Zaven Collins is staring you right in the face, you still have to think about it long and hard, even though you have all those needs on the offensive side of the ball.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see what happens. For all of our Patriots coverage, head to clnsmedia.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel over at Patriots Press Pass.